The trading station called Halo 7 floated in the darkness of space. It was old and large, built near a dying red star at the edge of known space. Thousands of beings from hundreds of different worlds lived and worked there. They traded goods, shared stories, and tried to make peace between species that had once been enemies. Lieutenant Yuna was new to the station. She had arrived only 3 months ago, fresh from Earth's Space Academy. She was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life forms. She was young, only 26 years old, with kind eyes and a gentle way of speaking. Many of the aliens on the station thought she was strange because she smiled too much and asked too many questions about their home worlds. On that particular day, Yuna was sitting in her small office, reading reports about a newly discovered species of space whale. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago. The artificial lights of the station made it feel like eternal afternoon. She was about to take a break when the alarm began to scream. Red lights flashed everywhere. The station's voice, calm but urgent, announced Emergency Protocol 7. Yuna had memorized all the protocols during her training. Protocol 7 meant dangerous creature loose on the station. Her heart began to beat faster. She ran to the nearest security monitor room. Other crew members were running too, but they were running away from the cargo base. Yuna pushed against the crowd, moving toward the danger. She did not know why. Something in her needed to see. The monitor room was crowded with security officers. Commander Tavek stood in the center, his tall insect-like body rigid with tension. He was a Kelori, a species known for their illogical minds and strict following of rules. His compound eyes reflected the dozens of screens around him. On the largest screen, Yuna saw something that made her breath catch in her throat. A ship had crashed in Cargo Bay 12. The vessel was small and badly damaged, fire and smoke pouring from its broken hull. But that was not what made everyone in the room stand frozen with fear. A creature was crawling out of the wreckage. It was massive. Even through the screen, Yuna could see that it was larger than any land animal from Earth. It had 8 legs, each one thick and covered in dark armor. Its body was protected by a shell that looked harder than metal. Its head had no clear face, just a mass of compound eyes and mandibles that dripped with something that hissed when it touched the floor. Of Varax. Yuna had only read about them in her textbooks. They were classified as Category 9 apex predators, the most dangerous rating possible. Every species in the galaxy knew about the Varax. Parents told their children horror stories about them. Soldiers trained for years just to learn how to run away from them. The creature in the cargo bay dragged itself across the floor. It moved slowly, and Yuna noticed something that others might have missed. One of its legs was bent at a wrong angle. Pale blue blood left a trail behind it. The Varax was heard. Commander Tavik's voice cut through the silence. His words were sharp and clear. He ordered all bulkheads sealed immediately. No one was to approach. The military extermination fleet would be called. Until they arrived, everyone would stay in safe zones. The officers around Yuna nodded. This was the correct response. This was what the protocols demanded. A Varax could not be contained or reasoned with. It could only be destroyed. But Yuna kept watching the screen. The Varax had stopped moving. It had found a corner of the cargo bay, far from the burning ship. It pressed its massive body against the wall and stayed there. Its legs were pulled close to its body. Its many eyes kept moving, watching every shadow, every flicker of light. Yuna had seen this behavior before. Not in a monster. In frightened animals. In her grandmother's old dog during thunderstorms. In injured birds she had found as a child and tried to heal. The Varax was not hunting. It was not preparing to attack. It was scared. She opened her mouth to speak, but Corporal Doan appeared beside her. He was the only other human on the station, a soldier who had fought in 6 different star systems. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking slightly. Dahan was not a man who scared easily. He told Yuna that he had read the incident reports. 47 times beings had encountered a Varax. 47 times, nearly everyone had died. He described what had happened at Kepler Station 5 years ago. 300 dead in less than an hour. They had tried to help an injured Varax, just like this one. It had killed them all. Yuna listened to his words. She understood the fear. She understood the logic. But she could not stop looking at the screen. The Varax had begun to shake. Its whole massive body trembled like a leaf in wind. The blue blood was pooling beneath it now. Whatever had happened to that ship, whatever had hurt this creature, it was dying. Slowly and painfully, it was dying alone in a cold cargo bay, surrounded by beings who wanted nothing more than to destroy it. Commander Tavik gave more orders. Additional security teams were deployed to guard the sealed doors. Weapons were distributed. The message to the military fleet was sent. Estimated arrival time was 14 hours. Yuna did some quick calculations in her head. Looking at the amount of blood the Varax was losing, she did not think it would live that long. The extermination fleet would arrive to find a corpse. She wondered if that would make everyone feel safer. She wondered if anyone else saw what she saw when they looked at that screen. Not a monster, not a weapon, just a creature in pain, far from home, waiting to die. The other officers began to leave the monitor room. Their jobs were done. The protocols were in place. Now they just had the wait dog, Yuna, stayed. She watched as the Varax's trembling grew worse. She watched as it made a sound that the station's audio sensors barely picked up. It was low and deep, almost below the range of human hearing. It sounded like a cry. She thought about all the things she had learned in school. She thought about the statistics, the death counts, the warnings in bold red letters in every textbook. She thought about what logic and reason and proper protocol demanded. Then she thought about her grandmother, back on Earth in a small fishing village by the sea. Her grandmother who had taught her to catch fish gently and release them back. Her grandmother who said that every living thing, no matter how strange or scary, deserved kindness. Yuna made a decision. She did not know yet what she would do or how she would do it. But looking at that suffering creature on the screen, she knew she could not just wait and watch it die. She was human. And sometimes, being human meant doing things that made no logical sense at all. The hours passed slowly on Halo 7. The station remained locked down, and fear spread through every corridor like cold water. Beings who had lived peacefully together for years now looked at each other with nervous eyes. If a Varax could arrive here, what else might come? Yuna spent those hours in the station's medical archive. She read everything she could find about Varax biology. The files were old and incomplete. No one had ever studied a living Varax up close because no one had ever survived being close to one long enough. Everything the galaxy knew about these creatures came from dead bodies and destroyed stations. She learned that their blood was copper-based, which explained the blue color. She learned that their armor could withstand plasma weapons. She learned that their venom could dissolve metal in seconds. With each fact she read, she understood better why every species feared them, but she also found something interesting. Deep in an old research paper, written by a scientist who had died decades ago, there was a theory. The scientist believed that Varax were not naturally aggressive. He thought they had complex social structures on their home world. He thought the violent ones encountered by other species were individuals that had been traumatized, separated from their groups, driven mad by fear and pain. No one had believed him. The paper had been dismissed. The scientist had lost his reputation. But Yuna read his words again and again. She thought about the creature in Cargo Bay 12. She thought about its trembling body and its crying sound. The next morning, Commander Tavik called an emergency meeting of all senior staff. Yuna was not senior staff, but she went anyway. No one stopped her. Perhaps they were too worried about other things. The meeting room was large and cold. Beings of many different species sat around a circular table. Commander Tavik stood at the center, his insect body casting a long shadow on the wall. Beside him was Dr. Pallas, the station's chief medical officer. Dr. Pallas was a Meridian, a species with 4 arms and skin that changed color with emotion. Right now, his skin was dark gray, the color of deep worry. He had been a doctor for 300 years. He had seen many terrible things. But even he looked disturbed. The doctor began to speak. He showed images on the screens around the room. Images of destroyed stations. Images of bodies. Images of the chaos that Varax left behind wherever they went. He told stories that everyone already knew but needed to hear again. The massacre at Kepler Station. The destruction of the colony ship Endless Hope. The night of blood on the pleasure planet Valoria. 47 documented incidents. Thousands of deaths. Every single encounter ended the same way. One of the officers, a small furry being named Taro from a peaceful farming world, asked why the military could not just destroy the creature now. Why wait for the fleet? Commander Tavik explained that their weapons were not powerful enough. A Varax's armor could survive direct hits from ship cannons. The only way to kill one was with concentrated fire from multiple warships at once. The station's security weapons would only make it angry. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. They were trapped on a station with a creature that could kill them all, and they had no way to stop it. All they could do was wait and hope. Why Yuna raised her hand. Everyone turned to look at her. Some did not recognize her. She was junior staff, barely important enough to attend meetings like this. Commander Tavik's compound eyes focused on her with curiosity and irritation mixed together. Yuna spoke carefully. She explained what she had observed through the monitors. The Varax was not prowling or hunting. It had not tried to break through any doors. It had stayed in one corner for hours, bleeding and shaking. She said she believed the creature was injured and frightened, not aggressive. The room erupted with noise. Several species began talking at once. The translator devices struggled to keep up. Most of the voices were angry or dismissive. Who was this young human to suggest such things? Dr. Pallas raised his forehands for silence. His skin had turned a shade of orange, showing his frustration. He spoke directly to Yuna, his voice heavy with the weight of centuries. He asked if she had read the reports from Kepler Station. Those beings had thought the same thing. They had found an injured Varax. They had tried to help it. They had approached with medical supplies and gentle intentions. The creature had killed 60 of them in the first minute. The rest died trying to escape. Yuna nodded. She had read the reports. But she had also read them carefully, looking for details that others might have missed. She pointed out that the Kepler Station team had approached the Varax with weapons visible. They had surrounded it. They had used bright lights and loud sounds to try to calm it down. Everything they did would have seemed like a threat. She said the predators, especially injured ones, attacked when they felt cornered. It was basic animal behavior. The Varax at Kepler had not attacked out of bloodlust. It had attacked out of fear. Commander Tavik made a sound that might have been a laugh. He asked Yuna what she suggested instead. Should they turn off the lights and sing songs to it? Yuna did not laugh. She said that she wanted to enter the cargo bay alone. No weapons, no armor, no threats. Just her and a medical kit. She wanted to try to help the creature. The silence that followed was complete. Every being in the room stared at her as if she had lost her mind. Dr. Pallas spoke first. His skin had turned white, the color of shock. He said that what she proposed was not bravery, but suicide. He had taken an oath to preserve life. He could not approve sending someone to certain death. Others agreed loudly. They called her foolish. They called her dangerous. They said humans were known for their strange behavior, but this was too much even for a human. Only one voice spoke in her defense. It came from Elder Mira, the station's Silurian diplomat. She was ancient, over 400 years old, her body small and frail, but her mind sharp as ever. She had lived long enough to see many impossible things become possible. Elder Mira said that she had watched humans since the first day they joined the galactic community. She had seen them do things that defied all logic and expectation. Sometimes they died for their strange ideas. Sometimes they changed the universe. She said she did not know which this would be, but she thought Yuna had earned the right to make her argument. The vote was called. 9 voices against. 2 voices for. 1 voice that did not vote at all. Yuna's request was denied. She was ordered to return to her quarters and stay there until the military fleet arrived. Commander Tavik warned her that any attempt to approach the cargo bay would result in immediate arrest and removal from the station. She nodded and left the room, without another word. But as she walked back to her quarters, she thought about what Elder Mira had said. She thought about the creature dying alone in the darkness. She thought about all the things that logic and reason told her were impossible. Sometimes, being human meant ignoring logic and reason. Sometimes, being human meant taking the impossible chance. The station's artificial night fell over Halo 7. The lights dimmed to simulate evening, helping the many species maintain their natural sleep cycles. Most beings returned to their quarters, grateful for a few hours of rest before the military fleet arrived. Yuna sat on her bed, staring at the wall. Her small room felt like a prison. Through the thin walls, she could hear other crew members talking in worried voices. Everyone was scared. Everyone was waiting for someone else to solve the problem. She thought about her life before she came to space. She had grown up in a village called Namhae, on the southern coast of Korea. It was a quiet place where people still fished the old way, using small boats and simple nets. Her grandmother had raised her there after her parents died in an accident. When she was young, her grandmother was a woman of few words, but many lessons. She taught Yuna how to mend fishing nets with patient fingers. She taught her how to read the weather by watching the clouds. She taught her that the sea was dangerous, but not evil. That storms killed people not from hatred, but simply from being storms. One day, when Yuna was 12 years old, she found a dying shark on the beach. It had been caught in an abandoned fishing line and had washed ashore, exhausted and bleeding. Other villagers told her to leave it alone. Sharks were dangerous. It might bite her. It was better to let it die. But Yuna had looked into that shark's eye and seen something she could not ignore. Fear. Pain. A living creature that wanted desperately to survive. She had spent 3 hours carefully cutting the fishing line away, ignoring the teeth that could have taken her hand off. When she finally pushed the shark back into the water and watched it swim away, her grandmother had been waiting on the shore. Her grandmother did not scold her for the risk. Instead, she smiled and said something that Yuna never forgot. She said that being brave did not mean not being afraid. Being brave meant choosing to help even when you were afraid. She said that humans were special because they could see themselves in other creatures. They could feel the pain of beings completely different from them. This was not weakness. This was the greatest strength. Yuna thought about those words now, sitting in her small room on a space station millions of miles from that beach. The Varax was dying. She had checked the monitors before being sent to her quarters. The blood loss was severe. Its movements had become slower and weaker. By her calculations, it had perhaps 4 or 5 hours left. The military fleet would not arrive for another 10 hours. She could stay in her room. She could follow orders. She could let the creature die alone and tell herself that she had done the smart thing. The safe thing, the thing that everyone agreed, was correct. Or she could be the girl on the beach again. The one who saw fear in a monster's eye and chose to help anyway. Yuna stood up. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was clear. She gathered the supplies she needed. A basic medical kit, a translator device, a small light, and nothing else. No weapons. No armor. Nothing that could be seen as a threat. Getting to the cargo bay would not be easy. Security teams patrolled the corridors. The doors to the cargo section were sealed with Commander Tavik's personal authorization codes. But Yuna had spent 3 months learning every corner of this station. She knew things that the official maps did not show. She moved through the maintenance tunnels. Spaces designed for repair robots that were just large enough for a small human to squeeze through. The metal was cold against her hands. The darkness was complete, except for a tiny light. She had to stop several times when she heard patrol teams passing nearby. After an hour of crawling and climbing, she reached a service access point near Cargo Bay 12. The door here was old and rarely used. Its lock was a simple mechanical one, not connected to the main security system. She had noticed it weeks ago, during a routine inspection, and had thought nothing of it at the time. Now she was grateful for her curious nature. The lock clicked open. The door swung inward. Cold air rushed out, carrying a strange smell that Yuna did not recognize. She stepped through into darkness. The cargo bay was huge and mostly empty. The crash ship still smoked in the center, but the fires had died down. Emergency lights cast weak red shadows across the floor. Yuna could see the trail of blue blood leading across the bay to the far corner. Her heart was beating so fast that she could hear it in her ears. Every instinct told her to run. Every lesson she had learned in school told her that she was about to die. She thought about the people at Kepler Station, the ones who had tried to help and had been torn apart in seconds. But she also thought about her grandmother. She thought about the shark. She thought about the look in the Vorax's eyes on the monitor screen. She walked forward. Each step felt like a mile. The floor was slick with spilled cargo and leaked fluids from the ship. She nearly slipped twice. She kept her light pointed at the ground, not wanting to startle the creature with sudden brightness. As she got closer, she could hear breathing. Deep, wet, labored breathing that sounded like an old engine struggling to run. She could smell the Vorax now, a strange mix of ocean and metal, and something she could not name. Then she saw it. The Vorax was pressed into the corner, exactly where it had been for hours. It was even larger up close than it had seemed on the screens. Each leg was as thick as her entire body. Its shell was scarred and cracked in places, evidence of old battles. Its many eyes reflected her small light like a constellation of dying stars. The creature saw her. Its eyes tracked her movement. But it did not attack. It did not even move. Yuna stopped 5 meters away. She sat down on the cold floor, crossing her legs like a child at story time. She placed her medical kit beside her. Then she did something that no xenobiologist had ever done with a Vorax. She waited. The first hour passed in silence. The Vorax watched her. She watched it back. Neither moved. The only sounds were its struggling breath and the distant hum of the station's life support systems. Yuna did not try to approach. She did not make sudden movements. She just sat there, showing the creature that she was not a threat, that she was not going anywhere, that she was willing to wait. Slowly, so slowly that she almost did not notice, the Vorax's breathing began to calm. Its trembling decreased. Its eyes, which had been darting frantically, began to settle. It was working. Against all logic, against everything the galaxy knew about these creatures, it was working. Now came the hard part. Yuna began to talk. She did not speak to inform or command. She spoke the way her grandmother used to speak to frightened animals, with a gentle flow of words that meant less than the sound they made. Her voice was soft and steady, filling the cold space between her and the massive creature. She told the Varax about her home. She described the village of Namhe, the way the morning fog rolled over the water like a blanket. She talked about the fish markets, where old women shouted prices and young children ran between the stalls. She talked about the taste of fresh seafood cooked over open fires, about the sound of waves against the shore at night. The Varax could not understand her words. It had no translator device, and human language was foreign to it. But something in her tone seemed to reach it. Its eyes stopped darting. Its massive body, which had been rigid with tension, began to relax slightly. Yuna kept talking. She told the creature about her grandmother, about the lessons she had learned, about the day she left Earth to travel among the stars. She admitted that she had been scared, leaving everything she knew behind. She said that sometimes, even now, she felt alone and far from home. The Varax made a sound. It was low and deep, more felt than heard. Yuna recognized it from the audio recordings she had studied. Scientists had labeled it as a threat vocalization. But listening to it now, she thought it sounded more like a response. Like the creature was trying to communicate back. She paused her stories and listened. The Varax made the sound again. This time, there was a different quality to it. Softer, almost questioning. Yuna smiled, though she did not know if the creature could understand the expression. She told it that she was not going to hurt it. She said she wanted to help. She knew it was injured. She knew it was scared. She said she understood what it felt like to be somewhere strange and frightening, surrounded by beings who looked at you with fear and hostility. Very slowly, she began to move closer. She did not stand up. She crawled forward on her hands and knees, keeping her body low and non-threatening. Each movement was deliberate, giving the Varax time to react if it needed to. The creature watched her approach. Its eyes tracked every centimeter of her progress. Several times, Yuna stopped and waited, letting it adjust to her new position before continuing. The distance between them shrank from 5 meters to 4, then to 3. She could see the injured leg clearly now. It was the front left one, bent at an angle that made her wince. The joint was broken, probably from the crash. Blue blood had dried around the wound, and the flesh beneath the cracked armor was exposed and raw. Without treatment, infection would kill the Varax, even if the blood loss did not dot at 2 meters. Yuna stopped. She reached slowly into her medical kit and pulled out a scanner. She showed it to the Varax, letting the creature see that it was not a weapon. Then she pointed it at herself first, demonstrating how it worked by scanning her own arm. The Varax watched with what seemed like curiosity. Its eyes focused on the small device, tracking the light it emitted. When Yuna pointed the scanner toward the creature, it flinched but did not attack. The scanner gave her the information she needed. The Varax's biology was strange and complex, but the basic principles of injury were universal. Broken bone, torn tissue, infection beginning to spread. She calculated what treatments might work based on what little was known about their species. She looked at the creature and spoke directly to it. She said she was going to try to help its leg. She said it might hurt a little, but she would be as gentle as she could. She asked it to trust her. The Varax made another sound. This one was different from all the others. It was higher, almost melodic. Yuna had no idea what it meant, but she chose to interpret it as acceptance. She crawled the final distance, until she was close enough to touch the injured leg. Up close, the Varax was overwhelming. Its shell radiated heat despite the cold air. Its breathing moved its entire body like waves in the ocean. One strike from those massive limbs would kill her instantly. Yuna placed her hand on the creature's leg. The Varax went completely still. Every muscle in its body seemed to freeze. Its eyes all focused on the small human hand touching its armored skin. For a long moment, nothing moved. Yuna held her breath, waiting to see if she had made a fatal mistake. Then the Varax released a sound that no one in the galaxy had ever recorded from their species. It was low and rumbling, spreading through its body and into the floor. Yuna felt it vibrating in her chest, in her bones. It was not a threat. It was not aggression. It was something like a sigh of relief. Yuna began to work. She cleaned the wound with careful precision, apologizing softly each time the creature flinched. She applied compounds that would fight the infection, hoping they would work on alien biology. She splinted the broken leg using materials from her kit and pieces of debris from the crash ship. The hours passed. The Varax remained still, allowing her to work. Sometimes it made sounds, and Yuna learned to read them. High sounds meant pain. Low sounds meant comfort. The deep rumbling meant something she interpreted as gratitude. As she worked, she talked to the creature. She told it about the friends she had made on the station. She told it about the alien food she had tried, and which one she liked and which one she did not. She told it silly stories about things that had happened to her during training. She found herself calling it buddy. She did not know why. It just seemed right. She said things like, "I've got you, buddy. Easy now. Just a little more." The words did not matter. The tone did. When the treatment was done, Yuna was exhausted. She had been working for nearly 5 hours. Her hands were stained with blue blood. Her back ached from bending over the creature. But the scanner showed improvement. The infection was retreating. The splint was holding. The Varax would live. She sat back against the cargo bay wall, just a few feet from the massive creature. She was too tired to be afraid anymore. Her eyes began to close on their own. The Varax moved. For a moment, Yuna's heart jumped with fear. But the creature was not attacking. It was repositioning itself, shifting its enormous body until it curved around her like a protective wall. Yuna looked up at its many eyes. In the dim light, they no longer seemed alien or frightening. They seemed gentle, watchful, safe. She did not mean to fall asleep. But her body had been pushed too far, and the warmth radiating from the Varax was surprisingly comfortable. Her eyes closed, and she drifted into dreams of waves and shores and her grandmother's voice. When the security teams finally broke through the cargo bay doors at dawn, weapons drawn and ready for battle, they found something that would become famous across the galaxy. Lieutenant Yuna was asleep against the Varax's side, her small hand still resting on its armored shell. The creature was awake, its many eyes watching the newcomers with clear warning. It did not attack. It did not run. It stayed where it was, curled around the human who had shown it kindness. It was protecting her. The news spread across the galaxy like fire in dry grass. Within hours, every news channel, every information network, every communication system was carrying the same story. A human had done the impossible. A human had approached the Varax, treated its wounds, and survived. More than survived. The creature had protected her. On Halo 7, chaos had given way to confusion, and confusion had slowly turned into wonder. Commander Tavik had wanted to arrest Yuna immediately. She had broken direct orders. She had risked not just her own life, but the lives of everyone on the station. By all regulations, she should have been removed from duty and sent back to Earth, in disgrace. But then he had seen the footage. The security cameras had recorded everything. 5 hours of a small human woman sitting with a monster, talking to it, treating its wounds, calling it buddy. 5 hours of a creature that had killed thousands across the galaxy, lying still and gentle as a sleeping cat. Tavik watched the footage 3 times. On the third viewing, he noticed something that changed his mind completely. At the moment when Yuna first touched the Varax's leg, the creature could have killed her. Its other legs were fully functional. Its mandibles were within striking distance. Nothing was stopping it, but instead of attacking, it had relaxed. It had trusted her. And at the end, when she fell asleep, it had moved not to harm, but to shelter. Tavik was a logical being. He believed in rules and protocols because they kept people alive. But he was also honest enough to recognize when the rules were wrong. He had voted to let the creature die. He had been certain it was the right choice. Now, watching that footage, he was not certain of anything. He did not arrest Yuna. Instead, he submitted a formal report to the Galactic Council recommending that all protocols regarding Lorax be reviewed and revised. The military fleet arrived 6 hours after the cargo bay doors were opened. The admiral in command was a stern Kellery named Voss, known throughout the fleet for her efficient handling of dangerous situations. She had expected to find a station in ruins and a monster to be destroyed. Instead, she found something that defied explanation. Yuna was awake by then, sitting beside her patient and refusing to leave its side. The Varax was alert but calm, allowing medical teams to approach as long as Yuna was present. When anyone moved too quickly or spoke too loudly, it would shift its body between them and the human. Protecting her. Always protecting her. Admiral Voss spent a long time watching this strange pair. She had served in the military for 50 years. She had seen many things that surprised her. But this was different. This was not just surprising. This was impossible. She asked Yuna how she had done it. How had she known the Varax would not attack? How had she found the courage to enter that cargo bay alone? Yuna thought about the question for a moment. Then she gave an answer that would be quoted for centuries. She said she did not know the Varax would not attack. She thought it probably would. She said courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision that something else was more important than fear. She had decided that this creature's life was more important than her safety. That was all. Admiral Voss had no response to this. She ordered her fleet to stand down and requested specialists be sent from the Galactic Science Institute. Dr. Suho arrived 3 weeks later. He was a human researcher, one of the foremost xenobiologists in known space. He had spent his entire career studying predator species, trying to understand their behavior and find ways to coexist with them. When he heard about what had happened on Halo 7, he had canceled all other work and traveled as fast as possible. What he discovered would change galactic history. Through careful observation and study, Suho and his team learned that everything the galaxy believed about Varax was wrong. They were not mindless killers. They were highly intelligent pack animals with complex social structures. They communicated through a combination of sounds, vibrations, and chemical signals that other species had never recognized as language. The violent encounters documented throughout history were not examples of natural Varax behavior. They were the actions of traumatized individuals. Poachers had been capturing Varax for centuries, selling them to wealthy collectors and illegal fighting rings. Separated from their packs, treated with cruelty, and kept in isolation, these creatures had gone mad with grief and fear. Every Varax that had ever attacked a station or colony was not a monster. It was a victim. When Suho presented his findings to the Galactic Council, the room was silent for a long time. Beings who had grown up fearing Varax, who had lost friends and family to them, struggled to accept this new understanding. But the evidence was undeniable. The footage from Halo 7 was proof that peaceful contact was possible. The Varax that Yuna had saved was officially designated Subject Number 1 in the new research program. But everyone on the station called it Buddy. Even the official reports eventually started using the name, much to the frustration of proper scientists who wanted proper terminology. Buddy refused to leave Yuna's side. When researchers tried to relocate it to a special facility for study, it became agitated and aggressive, just like the traumatized Varax of old. But the moment Yuna entered the room and spoke to it softly, It calmed down immediately. Dr. Suho explained that Virax form bonds for life. When Yuna had touched Buddy and cared for its wounds, she had become part of its pack. To Buddy, she was not a strange alien or a potential threat. She was family. Yuna accepted this responsibility. She became the first human Virax handler in history, working with Suho and his team to develop new protocols for contact and communication. She learned to understand Buddy's sounds and movements, to recognize its moods and needs. In turn, Buddy learned to trust other beings who Yuna introduced to it. Slowly, carefully, the relationship between Virax and the rest of the galaxy began to change. 1 year after the incident, a ceremony was held on Halo 7. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to witness something that would have been unthinkable before. A group of young Kelori children were going to meet Buddy under Yuna's supervision. Commander Tavik watched from a distance. He had requested to be present, though he was not required to attend. In the past year, he had thought often about the night when he had voted to let the creature die. He had been wrong. So completely, terribly wrong. The children approached nervously, their parents watching with a mixture of fear and hope. Buddy was lying on the floor, its massive body still and calm. Yuna stood beside it, speaking softly. One child, smaller than the others, broke free from the group and walked right up to the Virax. Her parents made sounds of alarm, but Yuna raised a hand to stop them. She knew Buddy. She knew what would happen. The child reached out a trembling claw. Buddy lowered its great head, bringing its eyes level with the tiny being. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the child touched Buddy's shell, and Buddy made the low rumbling sound that Yuna had come to recognize as contentment. The child laughed with delight. The parents gasped. Around the room, beings of a dozen different species watched in amazement. Some were crying, though they might not have admitted it. Tavik was one of them. Later that evening, Yuna stood on the observation deck with Buddy curled around her like always. She looked out at the stars and thought about how much had changed. She thought about her grandmother, who had died the year before Yuna left Earth and never got to see her reach space. She liked to imagine that her grandmother was watching somehow, that she could see what had happened, that she was proud. Yuna placed her hand on Buddy's shell and felt the familiar warmth. The creature made a soft sound and shifted slightly, making room for her to lean against it. "We did good, Buddy," she said quietly. "We did good." Out in the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds, beings were learning a new lesson. They were learning that sometimes the monsters were not really monsters at all. That sometimes fear was the only real enemy. That sometimes all it took to change everything was one person stubborn enough to offer kindness when everyone else offered only violence. They were learning what humans had known for a long time, what Yuna's grandmother had taught her on a beach long ago. Every living thing, no matter how strange or scary, deserved gentleness, and being brave meant helping even when you were afraid. That was the human way. And slowly, one small act of kindness at a time, it was becoming the galactic way too.